I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the after show for Worst Cooks in America. I am your host, the Tyson, and we will be covering episodes 3 and 4 on this particular after show. And I got my girls, my cooking experts. They got flavor in different areas. I got my girl Elyse and my girl Erika. What's up, y'all?
Oh, thank you for that nice compliment. Yeah, I don't know if I'm so much an expert. I'd like to think so in the kitchen, but I love this panel. I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yes, same here. What's up, party people? Hey.
What's up, party people? Let's get into these dishes. So let's just go ahead, since we're covering 2 episodes, let's jump into episode 3 first. We're going to talk about, first, let me get me your overall opinions on episode 3. We'll start with you, Elyse.
I love that every week they start with different challenges because it changes things up and we get to see a different vibe from all of them. It seems by week they get a little bit better, but then somebody fails me and I'm like, it kind of went down a little bit, but I thought it was a great episode. I enjoyed watching it.
And what about you, Erika? How did you feel about episode 3?
I really enjoyed it as well. I think I do like the idea that each week they have a different theme. So you kind of learn about something sort of specific in the kitchen. So they kind of teach the audience as well as the contestants. So I think that's a good vibe that they kind of add to the scenario. So yeah, I've been enjoying it.
And so like in episode 3, the opening challenge, they had to dive for their ingredients to make ceviche. So the whole process of diving was a bit much. And then they had to actually make it. And I don't know about y'all, but every last person, I've never had ceviche, but everyone's ceviche I would not even attempt to put in my mouth. Elyse, what did you think about this opening challenge in episode 3?
Well, I thought it was hilarious, not because of the food part, but because you have like Johnny Bananas with his scuba gear and he is all about it. Like he is diving in and I'm like, you gotta make the challenges fun, Like some people are just sticking their hands in and he's like putting his whole head in with the scuba gear and looking for things. So I thought that was a funny twist because you have 25 minutes to make something that you probably might not have even heard of, let alone even made before. So the fact that they kind of like kicked their shoes off a little bit and had a little bit of fun with it, especially because you're stressed in that situation, making something you might not have before, I thought it was pretty cool.
And what about you, Erika? I've never had ceviche. Erika, what did you think about their ceviche and have you had it before?
I have had ceviche before. I didn't think their ceviche actually was that bad. Like, I think it didn't look too, great or whatever, but basically it is sort of a toss of, the acid from the lime juice cooks the fish theoretically. So, you know what I'm saying? So no ceviche looks like all that great, honestly. So I didn't think anybody did horribly or, because it's basically you chop up, basically pico de gallo with some fish. So it's like...
Exactly. Sonia was the only one because she was doing it with her hands, and right before the end, she had some and threw it out. I'm like, I'm not eating that. Like, what are you thinking, ma'am? And so moving on from that, they then went on to doing the main dish challenge. Now, I'm not even going to try to go through these names of the dishes that they were making, but the red team, and y'all can correct me as I butcher this, but they had to make branzino, how you say it, in papite? How you say it? Do y'all know how to say that?
I just wrote branzino with cauliflower because I knew I would not be able to attempt to say some of those names.
Well,
and garlic breadcrumbs.
Well, basically, whatever the French word is for in paper, they have to make this fish and they have to bake it in paper. And that's what the word that I can't pronounce means. And the blue team, they had to do salmon with Dijon sauce and Dijon hollandaise sauce and veggies. And I thought all of those dishes looked phenomenal. Like they actually made me want to pull out my pad, write some stuff down, and try to do this. What were your thoughts on their dishes, Elyse?
I thought they did really good as well. I was really impressed with the blue team, and so were the judges. I think that they did such a great job at the end. But overall, I mean, they didn't really, nobody really struggled too much with this dish. And like you said, a lot of it was hard to pronounce. It seemed like it was a really crazy dish to make, and there was a lot of pieces to it. So overall, I thought they did a pretty good job.
I am terrified of fish, especially when the head is on. So the moment he pulled that fish out, I would have been like, Bridgett, that would have been the end for me. Erika, how is your filleting and all of that? Are you able to cut the head off the fish?
I have never actually filleted a fish like that before, or cleaned a fish or anything like that. So actually that was interesting to see, to see it done. And, usually, obviously most people buy their fish already cleaned and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people who do fish, so, it wouldn't be a bad thing to learn. And yeah, it was interesting. It seemed like the red team sort of struggled when it came to seasoning overall, because a lot of people like, oh, the vegetables look nice, everything is chopped well, but you're still not like adding salt and pepper or whatever. So I kind of was like, okay, come on, you guys.
Where's Sanaa when you need her? Because seasoning is her thing. But yeah, everyone, I'm glad you said that, because everyone on the red team, if I remember correctly, everyone did get criticized, even Robin, for having their food under seasoned, and kept telling them, you just need to add a little bit more seasoning. Don't be afraid of the seasoning. Are y'all I understand that, because I have, if you've ever over salted your food and then proceeded to eat it, it's like a traumatic experience. And so then you're forever traumatized where you don't want to over salt your food. So I understand. Have y'all ever experienced anything like that?
Yes. It's funny that you were saying that, Tyler, because I was laughing because I was remembering a story from my childhood, and when my family watches, they will know exactly what I'm talking about. But I think I was like 7 or 8, and my mom would teach us to cook. So I was making macaroni and cheese. And for some reason, I thought that it would be great to put salt on the macaroni and cheese. And that tasted like soap. It was so horrible. And so every time I eat mac and cheese, I think about the time where I put so much salt on there. I mean, I was 8, but still, it was horrible.
It's traumatizing. Erika, what do you have any traumatizing seasoning stories?
Not that I did myself, no.
Because see, that's why I told y'all she's a pro. I told y'all.
Thank you.
I mean, I've tasted plenty of nasty food for sure, but I have not. I mean, I think the only time I really have issues with salt is if I'm, like if you're frying chicken and you're using like a brine that's salty, and then you still want to, season your flour. I have issues, I think, when I'm salting things in different layers. But if I'm just like baking something and putting salt on it, like not usually, but not that I'm that great of a chef or anything, but yeah. But sort of if you're using like seasoned flour to fry, or you're making a gravy, I think those things where you're adding different layers of seasoning can, can kind of create a mess.
And that's usually where it gets out of control. When you start, for me, my gravy, like you were talking about, that is where mine just went left. And I thought my gravy was about to be bomb, and it just had a little too much salt, and I was smothering like, I don't know, pork chops or something ridiculous. And it just messed up the whole meal, but I still ate it. But
good for you. Good for you.
Listen, you got to commit. Once I commit, I'm just all in. So with this challenge, we know that the loser of the teams were Sonia and Bananas. So for the blue team, it was Johnny Bananas, and for the red team, it was Sonia. And then for the, I don't know what they called the last challenge to see who's going to be kicked off of the show. They had to
blind elimination.
What is it called?
The blind elimination challenge?
Blind elimination, yes. The blind elimination challenge, they had to fillet a fish, and basically, how can I explain it? Not just fillet it, but I guess all they had to do is fillet it. They had to fillet 2 pieces of fish, and they got judged on their fillets. And Sonia, she had 1 perfect fillet and 1 fillet that just looked like it went through the shredder. And Johnny Bananas, he had 2 very small but almost perfectly filleted pieces of fish. And so Johnny ended up getting saved, and Sonia, unfortunately, was kicked off of the show. What were you thinking about those results, Alyssa?
First of all, I have to disagree with the way they end the show with the blind eliminations, because I think it should be like who did the worst out of everybody. It shouldn't be one from the blue, one from the red, because I felt that Johnny and Dave, they did phenomenal from what the judges said. So I thought they
Yes.
should have picked 2 people from the red team and not just, okay. Cause I was like, well, who are they going to pick from the blue team? Because they were both pretty much spot on. And then he was like, okay, well, Dave did a little bit better. So I think that it shouldn't matter. I mean, if both of the blue did horrible, then I guess the blue team is both, well, there'll be one person left from there. But I don't agree with them doing that. So I thought that was interesting because we've seen them do that in other episodes as well. But I kind of thought that Sonia might have it because hers were a little bit bigger, but it's kind of hard to see when you're watching it, like exactly, and especially because the chefs, they're, professional chefs, so they know what they're looking for. And I love the fact that they don't know who's is A and who's B, so it's not like they can pick the person from their team color.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you said that because that was my thought was, I thought they were just going to pick who was the worst regardless of the team. And not, it has to be one from blue and it has to be one from red. So I was really disappointed by that. Erika, what was your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, kind of something similar because now the blue team is so small. So it's like every time it's like, okay. And he seems to really be impressed with their food every round. So it's kind of interesting that, basically if there's just 2 of them, then one is going to go in every time. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of interesting how they're going to end up doing that, I guess, for the next episode or 2 that's still left. And then I agree with a lot of what was already said. I thought Sonia did a decent job initially when she was cutting up the fish or whatever, and I like the bigger fillet, but I guess they have to be perfectly paired.
Right. Yeah.
And you only have 5 minutes. That's not enough time. Like what are you gonna do in 5 minutes?
Exactly. That is not enough time. And I was disappointed just in the whole challenge in the first place because as like Alyssa pointed out, but unfortunately Sonia ended up getting kicked off the show and she went home. So our kooky friend is no longer on the show, which brings us to episode 4. And with this challenge, they had to do the rowboat challenge where basically they have on these headsets and the chefs, the professional chefs, and Ty, is that his name, Tyler? They were then they had these ingredients in front of them, but they didn't really know what they were supposed to be making. And so the worst cooks, which are all the celebrities, they had to basically break down the meals and explain to them what they needed to be making. And I thought that was, this is my first time ever watching the show. So all of that was new to me. I loved it. I love stuff like that. Alyssa, what did you think of episode 4, how it opened?
Well, first, just let me say, I am probably the world's pickiest eater. So if you're going to put a plate of food in front of me and ask me what the ingredients are, I'm going to be like, I have no idea because I would never eat this. So I can't really help you. I just know that it's something I would not eat. So that's what I was thinking when I was watching the episode. I would be probably useless during that challenge because I don't eat a lot of foods. So but I thought it was really interesting that they kind of got to switch places and that the chefs had to help them kind of like, okay, what does it look like? What does it maybe taste like? Overall, I thought they did great on the challenges. We saw that the blue team ended up taking it, but I love the fact that they were saying different things like, oh, it was this. And then they would show us on the screen, no, it's an X, it's not that. So I'd say they got like 75, 80% of it right overall, both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how when they were just in there breaking it down, that would have been me. I would have, even if I don't like, because I'm not the biggest fan of like lamb and all of that, but I will eat it. And so I would have been right there just trying to figure it out. I would have been just like Robin. Erika, what about you? What did you think about?
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool challenge because I think a lot of it has to do, like you said, with your palate and what your flavors are and what you've been exposed to. So that was really interesting to see, like the things that people were coming up with as opposed to like pine nuts or feta cheese. Like I kept thinking it was onion for some reason. So it was actually very interesting. And I thought that was kind of a fun challenge, not over the top goofy, but kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And, I thought it was a good way to open up the show for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was great. It's like working backwards because we're so used to having all of our ingredients in front of us and then, going through the process to make the food. This time we're going back, which I thought was dope. That's something I would do with my friends. Like just on a random drunk night, we're all bored. Like, let's just kind of break these things down. I love it. Maybe I'm just weird. Who knows?
Yeah, it's cool for sure.
And the blue team, they ended up winning that challenge. Now, both teams were stumped on what made part of the meal. It was the sauce, the goddess sauce.
The green goddess sauce.
They couldn't figure out what made it green. Like they broke it down, but on both teams, they kept missing this one ingredient, which was the avocado. I don't know if I would have thought avocado. What about you, ladies? Alyssa, what did you think? Would you have thought avocado?
I do not like avocado, so that would have been the furthest thing from my mind. But then you have to run through your mind, like, what's green or something that combines to make a green color. So I would have definitely lost that challenge.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought avocado because I don't like it. And in my mind, that texture is just different. But when you blend something, it changes textures anyway. Erika, would you have been able to think avocado?
I mean, I think part of it depends on the taste of it. You know what I'm saying? So like it would either be avocado or kind of, as the chefs were saying, you mix enough green herbs with the Greek yogurt, it's going to become green. So it kind of depends on if you're tasting it, if it had a strong flavor of like parsley or I forgot what else was in it, then maybe you couldn't, because avocado is very creamy in texture and you can whip it with stuff. But I don't know if it has like such a strong
distinctive flavor. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's probably harder to taste, especially if you're mixing it with something like yogurt, I would imagine. So I was kind of surprised, like, come on, you guys, there's not that much green stuff. But then again, with the other flavors, I don't know if I really would have tasted the avocado like that.
Yeah, and I think my thing, so yeah, like you said, with avocados, I don't feel like avocados have a distinctive taste. The reason why I don't particularly like them is because of the color and the texture, but it's never like once I taste something that has avocado, I usually like it, but I just can't get past the color and the taste. So the main challenge though, the red team, they had to make a wild mushroom Ceviche ravioli. I'm not to say that with Parmesan and butter sauce, and the blue team had to make a shrimp calbrian. Is that how you say it? With chili ravioli and vodka cream sauce. First of all, let me just say this blue team, my mouth is already watering because that vodka cream sauce sounds amazing. Alyssa, what did you think of these two challenges? And do you know how to make ravioli?
You know, it's funny because this is probably my favorite competition from all of them because I'm a huge Italian food lover. I love fettuccine Alfredo. I thought that that's what the chef was making at the beginning. So I was super excited about that. And then I thought, oh, why can't I make my own ravioli instead of just buying it at the store? You know, so I was kind of taking some notes because I love pastas. And especially because I'm like on a health kick right now. So I can put a little bit of spinach. I can like change what I actually put in there. So I thought this was a really cool competition, especially because they were actually like sliding the dough to make it thinner and actually make their own ravioli. I thought that was the coolest thing. So this has been my favorite competition so far.
You would have thought that, what's his name? The guy from The Bachelor, Wells? Is that his name? Wells. You would have thought he would have had a heads up since he made pasta from scratch in a previous challenge.
And it was horrible.
Erika, do you make your pasta from scratch? And what did you like about these challenges for both the red and the blue team?
Well, what I really liked about these challenges, I've personally never made pasta from scratch. So it was fun to kind of see that process, and it kind of made it seem like it wasn't so crazy, although you do, I guess, theoretically have to have that pasta machine. I thought it was interesting kind of what flavors people decided to put together inside of their ravioli. So I thought that really was an interesting concept to see kind of how people were going to use their own creativity to bring the flavors together.
Right.
And so it was interesting. You know, the guys, I think I probably would have leaned more towards the sausage or whatever, but it was interesting, everybody's different sort of flavor palette.
Yeah, and Wells kind of, didn't he do like a taco type flavor for his ravioli, which was
right. And I thought that was gonna be so nasty, but she really liked it. I was like, that sounds horrible. Like, why would I put ricotta cheese and this? And you know, and I was like, oh, okay, but she really liked it. So that was, I was like, oh, okay. And then I didn't think, I don't really like peas that much, so I wasn't that
Bridgett's
either. I was like, what is that? But she liked that.
She had like when she had a snap pea and an early pea, it's like, I just need one pea. 2 peas is too many in one pot. I cannot do with that. Absolutely. And Bridgett actually won for the red team. So Bridgett, this is her first time winning. And Johnny Bananas won for the blue team. And then our losers, I was so shocked. Well, not really, because they did make it seem like her ravioli was
Not really.
Yeah. All right, guys. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty, but we were saying that the winners from the challenge, we had Bridgett, who won for the red team, and Johnny Bananas, he won for the blue team. And then our losers, surprising to me, Robin was from the red team. She was the loser from the red team. And since they keep doing this one from each team thing that we've already said we hate, Dave was the loser on the blue team. And so they had to go head to head in the elimination challenge where they had to make as many raviolis as possible and try to make them as perfect as possible. So you're going against time and you're going against like the quality of it. Alyssa, what did you think about this challenge?
Well, once again, like you said, I'm disappointed because Chef Tyler basically hugged Dave, and then he was so impressed with Johnny Bananas. They both did so great in that round, and I thought they both deserved to not be in the elimination round. So that was kind of a bummer for me. But to make ravioli, I mean, I know they had just made it, but they didn't have 5 minutes. Now they only have 5 minutes. And that's a stressful situation because you're going up against somebody basically like for your life because you have to stay in the game. So for 5 minutes to make perfect raviolis, and like they said, it's about quality and quantity. So just because Dave ended up making more didn't necessarily mean he was going to win, but he ended up, because I think Robin's hers were kind of spilling out too much and he made more, which was a good thing because if you have bad ones, the more you have, the better of a chance you have that you might have some good ones. So I think that's what ended up letting him win.
Exactly. And Erika, what did you think about that challenge?
Well, I thought it was interesting because Tyler made the point in choosing Dave that because he had allowed the sauce on his ravioli to reduce too much, and I think there was even too much salt in the meat filling that he had, that he was like, that's something that's basically going to be ruined every bite throughout the meal. Whereas I think Johnny Bananas, maybe it just wasn't quite salty enough. It was something where it's like he could almost fix it or I could deal with it. So I thought that was actually
one was over and one was under.
Yeah, and I thought that was a really interesting point in that if you do something and the meal isn't quite perfect, if it's something where, okay, like I can just add a little bit salt to this later or whatever, I thought that was an interesting point to bring out. Whereas if something is too salty, then every single bite is going to be ruined. So, that was,
Speaking from experience, when he said it, I literally jumped out of my seat like, yes, he's right. It's horrible. If you oversalt, there's nothing you can do.
Exactly. Every bite is done. So that was interesting. And one thing I was going to say was, if you recall when you were watching it, Dave brushed his sheet of dough with egg or whatever, so the other sheet would stick to it. I never saw Robin do that. And her team didn't remind her to do it because Dave didn't do it at first. And then Johnny Bananas was like, no, brush it, brush the sheet. And that's what's going to make the top stick to the bottom anyway. So that was probably why she had so many issues with it wrinkling up. Because I was like, it's not going to stay together if she didn't put the egg whitewash to get it to stick anyway. So, and it was kind of too bad because I felt like outside of her energy, she's one of the better cooks there. Like fundamentally, she's been pretty good every single challenge. So it's kind of like surprised to see her go home actually this early.
Yeah, that was my surprise. I was like, okay, I like both of these guys, and they both are doing very well in the competition, both Dave and Robin. Like, how do you really choose who goes home in this situation? Because now, to me, this doesn't look like a fair match. I have these two guys on one side that have just been killing, like Alyssa was saying. They keep getting hugs and high fives and all this praise from Tyler. and Bridgett and
Well.
Bridgett, he just got his first, or she just got her first compliment. So it's like that team is just like seems kind of weak compared to the other team now that Robin's gone. So I don't really know what that means for this show. Alyssa, what are your predictions on what's going to happen? For those of you that missed out in our little conversation, we said that Robin went home just in case somewhere that got lost in the shuffle. But what do you think is going to happen next?
Well, from seeing the previews from next week, it looks like Dave might be struggling a little bit, but it's just the preview, so anything could happen. He might end up winning the whole round again. So I'm excited to see what competitions they have next week. Like we said earlier, that they change it every single week. So I'm really starting to like get into these competitions because I love how they keep changing it up. And plus they had pasta this time, and I definitely took some notes. So I'm excited to see what they make next week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Erika, what are you excited to see in the coming episodes?
The same here. I think it looks like next week is going to be like desserts or something sweet. So I think that will be a fun kind of different change. And especially if they do anything that has to do with baking, because I think baking as opposed to traditional cooking is actually a whole nother skill set.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of different measurements and different scientific things kind of going on. So I think that should be interesting and fun. And I really feel like Bridgett is coming out a lot stronger than she originally came off. And it seems like, Chef Ann seems to think that, basically just trust her own instincts when it comes to flavors and stuff. And I do feel like Johnny Bananas is also like way stronger than maybe we originally thought. So it'll be interesting. I feel like it's going to come down to those two.
Oh, wow. That's a really good prediction. And I low key would appreciate it if they would like break up Johnny and Dave, put one on one team and one on the other. And I would like to see some type of team collaborative effort. Like if they're doing baking or they're doing I would like to see, okay, well, it's these two versus those two. Like I would kind of like to see that. That's just wishful thinking. So
that would be fun though. I think that's a cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
So I guess that's just
it might happen.
Thinking.
It might happen. We'll have to see.
Fingers crossed. So we'll tune in. Make sure you guys tune in next week and we'll see which one of the three of us were right. Why don't you guys tell everyone where they can find you? And hopefully you're doing some cooking in your Insta stories to keep, people entertained. Alyssa, where can they find you?
Well, I'm not necessarily doing too much cooking. It's more baking. I'm trying my hand at that. So we'll see. I'm going to make cheesecakes tomorrow. So I'll let you guys know how those go.
I'm watching.
It's my first time, so I'm kind of nervous about it. But I have a recipe, so it can't be that bad, right?
Okay.
But you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Alyssa_Acosta.
Yes, you get that under control so that when we can all be together again, you can bring a cheesecake in and we can all devour it. Erika, what you got going on, and tell the people where they can find you.
All right, well, I'm going to try my hand at some, some 420 friendly candies. So I will keep you all posted. Hey.
All right.
So I've been watching YouTube videos on some interesting gummies, so I will get back to you. But otherwise, you guys can follow me on all of my social media at Erika, Erika, D as in door, Edwards.
And I want both of those things. I want the gummies and I want the cheesecake. So you perfect that and get that under control so that when we open these studios back, you can bring me some. I guess I got to find something to bring y'all. I have no idea what that's going to be.
Donuts.
But I'll try. Oh no, I don't think baking is I don't know what it's gonna be. But you can follow me on all social media. Boom! I am a bartender. I am a certified bartender. There we go. I will bring the drink. I will put together something really nice for you ladies, and I'll bring it in. And you guys can follow me on all social media at the Tyler Tyson. So thank you guys so much for checking us out. We will, of course, be with you next week for episode 5 of The Worst Cooks in America. And we'll see y'all next week. Y'all stay safe out there. Remember to wash your hands, and we love y'all.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.